YouTube is flooded with channels that promise to help you to get rich quick by starting your own business, but many are just a scam to try to get you to help them get rich. If you're just exploring entrepreneurship or startups for the first time, it can be overwhelming to sift through all the noise and find content creators that give you the real deal. I'm Doc John, the EntreProfessor. I'm an entrepreneur and I teach entrepreneurship at a leading university. In this video, I'm going to spotlight 5 YouTube channels that I think every entrepreneur should be watching because they provide thoughtfully developed and actionable resources that help accidental entrepreneurs to thrive. Be sure to stay to the end to hear about additional resources that can help you to launch, grow, and thrive. Let's get into it. The first channel that I'm going to spotlight is Codie Sanchez with 1.2 million subscribers. I should first say I'm not listing these in any particular order. I think all 5 of these are excellent channels. And I am starting with Codie though because it's a good example of what I would call the gold standard of what a good entrepreneurship or startup channel should be. It has lots of good substance. Codie has a great and energetic personality. She's entertaining in the way that she approaches things. She looks at a broad range of ways that you can be a startup entrepreneur or to start or buy or own your own business. There's a lot of authenticity, depth, and creativity, so definitely one to check out. So the premise for this channel has evolved a bit over time. For the last year or so, the focus has been on what Codie calls contrarian thinking. It's really just looking at the world through unconventional eyes and seeing entrepreneurial opportunity everywhere. But over the past year, as she's spotlighted a lot of businesses that are maybe not the ones that everybody thinks of as super exciting, splashy, high tech, and so forth, she started to spotlight individual solopreneurs or people who have started boring businesses and become successful. What she calls Main Street millionaires. That's the subject of a new book that she just wrote that's going to be released soon, and a lot of her content has been focused on this topic. Some of the features of this channel that I find really interesting include how to buy boring businesses. Codie talks through how to find businesses where the owner is ready to sell and look for creative ways to be able to buy that business, even if you don't have a lot of capital. And that way you can get into a business that's already established, particularly if you want to work in that business. Another good feature of this channel is how to start businesses cheap, and including ideas for businesses that you could start very easily. Also, on the flip side, ones to avoid. Another feature of the channel that I think is really useful is spotlighting successful entrepreneurs, talking to entrepreneurs that have been successful doing something unique or creative and getting their story and seeing how they've built their business, looking for things that can be learned and tips, tricks, and techniques that could be applied to other businesses. Finally, I really like the way Codie identifies unique businesses and unknown business models and does a really nice breakdown of how they work. The pros of this channel include just Codie's high energy, confidence, actionable advice and ideas, and unconventional approach. In terms of cons, I would say sometimes it oversimplifies what it takes to start a business and be successful, whether buying a business or owning a business. And there are caveats. She mentions like this is hard work, this is not easy, but sometimes it underplays how much is involved with starting a business for beginners. Number 2, Make with Max. This is a smaller channel, about 17,000 subscribers, and the premise is rapid prototyping with no-code and low-code tools. It's really helpful for creating visibility around the types of tools that are out there to help prototype products simply, cheaply, quickly, and easily if someone has an idea but not sure where to get started. Also, a lot of emphasis on how can we create something small, get real market feedback about it, and then get it back out there. So you see the lean startup process, the creation of minimal viable products and testing those in the market happening in every single video on this channel. In terms of features of this channel, Max has a tagline that says, "I make stuff for people." And I personally had a chance to engage with Max on startup ideas, and he's done a really great job of coming up with unique ideas. He has a very just comfortable way to help take ideas that are complicated and technologies that can be a little bit involved and really explain how to use them in simple terms. Max also recently released a series, which will probably become a major premise on the channel from the looks of things, called the No Code Review. This is where he's taking a look at a no-code platform and giving a review, talking about what its purpose is, what its backstory is, some of the things that you can do with it. He even shows a bit about how it works, talks about the pros, cons, advantages, and disadvantages of each one. So I think this is going to be a really unique feature as he starts to build this out further. Also on the channel is a playlist of what's called No Code Nerd. These are older videos that he's created where he does a live build of a particular idea. He takes an idea, he uses one or two or a couple different no-code platforms and builds it in real time so people can really see how it's done. Similarly, he has a whole playlist and a number of videos called Maker Ideas, where it's actually about making products that are physical goods and figuring out how to come up with a quick, easy prototype that can then be sold out in the real world. So everything from apparel to different kinds of objects or gadgets and widgets, those kinds of things. So he talks about not only creating the prototype of the product, but also the e-commerce side of getting that product out into the market. There's also what are called Let's Build and live streams. These are live events where he gets an idea. He may arrive with an idea, or he may even crowdsource the idea among those that are viewing the live stream. Once he has the idea, he actually builds it in real time. And so you really see his imagination and his technical skills at work as he takes an idea and brings it to life very, very quickly. I've seen him do this online. I've seen him do this in virtual engagements. I've also seen him do it in live performances as well. Some of the pros to this channel, Make with Max, it has a show you how to approach. It can be quirky and fun. It's easy to understand, but also has a lot of technical substance. So you can really get into the weeds. And if you're trying to learn how to do something and you've never really used it before, if you want to learn how to use Jotform, if you want to learn Figma or Flutterflow or some kind of a platform that allows you to build applications or different things like that with no code, it's a good place to start because you get really a good overview and you see how to, you can kind of get your feet wet, before you're ready to get into really deep dive videos and how-to technical trainings. The cons, I would say, is Max is really interesting, if not dynamic. Sometimes it's long for content, or it can feel very long because it can feel like it drags a bit because he's doing a lot and he's really like you're watching someone literally click through and build something. It's very difficult to make that fun and entertaining when you're actually doing it as you go. So it's definitely something where it's a little bit of an acquired taste. You have to get used to that and like going along with the process. Last thing I'll say is sometimes, at least, and maybe a little bit less recently, but in the past, he's had this kind of weird continuous nose blowing thing going, which is a little strange. But other than that, really good channel. I've actually had the opportunity to interview Max for this channel. So if you want to see Max in action, check out the video that I have called The EntreProfessor Meets Entrepreneur, Innovating Higher Education. This is a great founder interview. We get some great insights, and we even see Max doing some live building. Number 3 is Matthew Gira. This is a smaller channel, only about 3,000 subscribers, but arguably one of my favorite entrepreneurship channels on YouTube. And the reason is that Matt was a founder. He actually founded a business, did a startup. It was a failure, but he learned a lot from it and he had a lot of successes along the way. And he then carried that success forward into creating lots of other startup ideas. And he's also really, really dedicated to teaching people the art and the science and the craft of entrepreneurship. His content has a great mild manner to it. He has fantastic interviews, and he really brings some substantive, detailed information to help startup entrepreneurs to be successful. The premise of the channel is accelerating bootstrap startups. So I would also say there's also maybe a less stated premise of just entrepreneuring with no-code platforms. So anyone who's doing a tech startup, this is a great channel to really get in the weeds on some of the tools that are out there and how to use them. So like Make with Max, he does a lot of videos that show how to use no-code software platforms, but he really builds out and goes deeper in terms of how it actually works. And so he will show what it looks like after something's been built. He doesn't necessarily do the step-by-step like Max does, but he will really show you, here's what I built, here's why I did it this way, here's how the market's been responding to it. So some really good things there. So some of the features of this channel, reviews of no-code developer platforms, particularly those that would help to fuel bootstrapped entrepreneurs. Also, interviews with leading experts in tools and techniques for startup founders. Some really key influencers have agreed to do interviews with Matthew, and he really does a nice job of drawing out their story and their expertise and highlighting that in ways that can be useful for his following. Finally, he has a great way of telling stories about famous startups, and so you can really get the backstory in a really interesting and informative way. So some of the pros of this channel, it's deeply substantive content. Matt is experienced as a founder. He now runs an accelerator. He's actually involved with a top university incubation center. So he's really got a lot of substance in his content, particularly when it comes to no-code platforms. He really is very solid in using these kind of platforms and brings a lot of technical information, but in a very easy to digest way. In terms of cons for this channel, Honestly, it's really hard to come up with any cons. It's just a great channel with authentic content and a simple yet high production quality, which is often something that you don't see. So I'm really hard pressed to come up with anything I would call a major con. So really good channel to check out. I did have the honor and privilege of being able to interview Matthew. So if you'd like to check out that video, it's called Should You Boost Your Startup with an Accelerator? Interview with Matthew Gira. So a good one to check out if you want to learn more about this one. Number 4 is Gillian Perkins. This is a larger channel than the last two, not quite as big as Codie Sanchez yet, but definitely on the rise, and a lot of really, really good substantive content for startup entrepreneurs. It can be useful, particularly if you're thinking of just starting as a side hustle and then growing into something bigger. This channel has 711,000 subscribers and seems to be gaining momentum. The premise is what Gillian calls startup society. This is really just her way of saying if you're thinking about a startup, you want to be part of a startup, like be part of this larger movement that she's a part of, and showing the path that she started as an example of how anyone who has really the determination, the grit, and some creativity can get started and start to build something that really makes an impact. Some of the features of this channel include making money online. There's really a focus here. So where different channels will focus on different kinds of startups, I would say this is where Gillian has most of her emphasis is on starting a business where you're making money online in some way. With that, it's work from home side gigs. So a lot of it is starting something small that you could do at home. So if you work from home and you want to do a side gig, or if you're a stay-at-home parent, or in the situation where you spend a lot of time working in your home and you want to do some more things for yourself, some ways to get started. Also, a lot of really good content around business planning. This is actually a gap in many YouTube channels and other media channels for entrepreneurs. And so some really good substance here if you need to build a formal business plan. Finally, just getting organized and productivity. Lots of good tips, tricks, techniques, and other ideas for getting the most out of the time you spend in your efforts to work on a startup. So pros for this channel include it's just a great resource and community for first-time entrepreneurs. It's kind of like getting tips from a good friend. So you're hearing Gillian's stories and experiences, and then what you can learn from those and how you could do some of the same things to be successful. I'd also say there's a lot of content that talks about integrating startup success with the rest of life. So it has productivity tools, not just for your business, but for your life. Wellness and just well-being and thinking through how to have a good mindset, as well as techniques and ideas on how to do things. In terms of cons, I would say this channel is a bit scattered at times. It seems like a lifestyle channel. So sometimes it's really focused how to make your business great kind of content. Other times it's, more about like, hey, here's what kind of happened to me this week. I think, to some degree, if you're really looking for hardcore content, you may have to look and focus on the videos that are talking about entrepreneurship and startups and business, and you might want to skip some of the ones that are more life-oriented. On the other hand, I think it's really great when you can see the authentic person that's doing the channel, and so you definitely see a lot of that coming through. A second con, I would say sometimes things are oversimplified. As I mentioned with Codie Sanchez, one of the things that can happen on a YouTube video is everybody wants to make it seem it's so easy, anybody can do it. And while that's true, this channel can oversimplify it a little bit, and you might not get the impression of like how much work actually goes into doing all these things. Then I would say it's not as much curated expert content, framework, and so forth. So where some of the other channels really draw from the lean startup methodology or from disciplined entrepreneurship or kind of structured approaches to starting businesses. This one is definitely more casual, more just, how do you do it, that kind of thing. So it doesn't have some of that expert framework, but that's just a different approach. And this is where I don't recommend just watching one channel. It's like get lots of different perspectives. My number 5 choice is Alex Hermosi. This is by far the biggest of the channels I've referenced here, 2.56 million subscribers. And Alex, of course, very, very well known as someone to kind of help you get a business started. Most known for what is the premise of this channel, $100 million offers. So Alex almost needs no introduction. I will say this one has a lot of hype. But there's also some really good substance here, so definitely makes my top 5 list. In terms of the features of this channel, there's lots and lots of inspiring content for aspiring business owners. It's a practical approach to creating a business that's ready to grow and eventually to sell. So there's lots of free insights and ideas for building particularly simple business to consumer businesses. And so the idea of developing an offer, that $100 million offer, something that's just very, very simple. And as Alex likes to say, you put so much great stuff into this offer and you make the price so little that people feel stupid saying no. Pros of this channel include just the clarity about how to establish and promote a concise offer. So the $100 million offers book and ebook and a lot of the content on this channel that relate to that, particularly excellent for membership organization like gyms, sports training organizations or centers, clubs. And there's really just a lot of just high energy and just interesting content when you follow Alex. In terms of the cons, this definitely has lots of get rich quick hype. More so than any of the other channels I've mentioned here. It certainly oversimplifies all it takes to stand up a successful business. I'd also say it's more of a hobby channel for Alex at this point, with some of the content being more about Alex than it is about entrepreneurship. I mean, let's face it, he's insanely rich, so why not? So those are my top 5 picks for channels that every startup entrepreneur should be watching. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about this channel and how I work to bring even more value. My premise is really to help accidental entrepreneurs to launch, grow, and thrive. And I really try to bring the intersection between practical, real-life lean startup practices and also research-based insights that inform university entrepreneurship programs, courses, and curriculum. I also really strive to go for substance instead of hype. So no false promises about how to get rich quick, just tools, techniques, and mindset that successful entrepreneurs employ when they're doing the hard work of starting a business. This includes terminology, just knowing what to call things and knowing what the processes are and the practices of entrepreneurship. And these have been well documented for academic programs and sometimes in the kind of the mantra of, just move fast and break things. Entrepreneurs can forget that there are some really good methods out there that have been defined, but oftentimes they get buried in traditional generalized business programs as a course or a minor or even just a module, and they don't get the attention they need as their own discipline. And so it's a way for those that are startup entrepreneurs that are moving fast and breaking things to also draw in the best practices and the things that research have shown have been really effective. In a sense, getting that head start by taking the things that have worked for very successful startup entrepreneurs. I also try to emphasize the hustle and grind that goes into building a successful business. Successful businesses are not built overnight. There's really no such thing as an overnight success. Those that appear that way are those when we saw something happen in a short period of time, but in fact, months, years, even decades have gone into getting to that point where this success could happen. And finally, resilience. Failure is inevitable as a startup founder, and it's one of the hardest things to deal with. It's one of the biggest hurdles that startup entrepreneurs have to get over as they think about starting, realizing that they might fail. But then even as they do fail, being willing and able to get back up, dust themselves off, and keep going and trying again. And so a lot of my emphasis is on how do you maintain your well-being and how do you have a good perspective on failure even when the stakes are high. I do this by telling real stories. Interviews with real startup founders about their journey, setbacks, failures, successes, all the things that have helped to inform and fuel their entrepreneurial spirit. Understanding stories like these can help any founder to be more successful by standing on the shoulders of giants that have come before them. So if startup entrepreneurship fascinates you, subscribe to this channel and tune in for more content like this. Content creators like Max, Matthew, Gillian, and Alex are sharing a treasure trove of valuable insights and experiences for startup founders. If you're just getting started or you're thinking about launching your own side hustle, product, or service, be sure to subscribe to these channels. I've included links to all 5 channels in the description below, so it's easy for you to find them. Another helpful resource if you'd like to read is my recent video called The 12 Absolute Best Entrepreneurship Books to Read This Year. Be sure to check it out. Keep going.